minutes with you. If you're on your way out into the field, we have the chance to spend the next hour with you and give you a long form topic to discuss. And today's topic is none other than built to last. So do me a favor as we get settled in this morning. If you are watching on social media, hit the like button, engage in the content, and let me know that you watched and engaged in what we're talking about today. If you are listening on Free Conference Call HD, your presence, your attendance, and your dedication to what we do is, of course, greatly appreciated. And just give me a moment to make sure all of the things are live and broadcasting where they're supposed to be. All right, awesome. So built to last. Built to last is today's topic. And what a powerful statement that really is, right? Built to last can mean a lot of things to a lot of people. And what I want you to do, kind of like what we did last Friday, and I asked you a couple questions to think over. Do you remember what they were? Did you give it your all? That was the first question. The second question is, how serious do you take your business? This isn't my business. This isn't Adam's business or any FMO's business. This is your business. So hopefully last week, you had an opportunity to think over those questions and contemplate what that really meant to you. Today, we're going to talk about built to last. And what I want you to think about, just the same way as last week, is what that really means to you. To me, it's an incredibly powerful statement. And I believe for those of you that are here today, you have proven that you yourself are also built to last. And before I tell you what I think that means and go on a little bit further into the topic, I want you to sit here, let it sink in, and be proud of the fact that if you're here today, you are yourself built to last in this business. Welcome into another Dynamic Friday where, of course, the elite gather together, sharpen their sales skills, and prepare for their final sales day of the week, where new agents come together and get that boost of confidence necessary for them to get out the door and get in front of people that need their help, where those that are out there in social media say to themselves, if this is what they're willing to offer me for free, this is the experience-based training and resources that they have, maybe I should partner with them. And if that's the case, I'm going to make sure in the comment section today I drop the contact information for both Adam and myself, so that if you're engaged in the content and you say to yourself, I want to work with these kind of guys, you have the opportunity to contact us as well. Don't forget, if you're watching somewhere on social media, to engage in the content. Comment on YouTube, subscribe to the channel, and engage so it continues to share out with other people. But before I share my thoughts on today's topic, and before we hear a little bit about Adam's week, and before we tackle what built to last really means to him, I have two really quick items I'd like to cover with you. First, if you're watching and you haven't already set up your contracting with Combined, reach out to Adam and make sure that you get that set up today. You very likely will get a writing number at the conclusion of the contracting. You very likely will be able to write business the very same day. And guess what? Get paid the very next day. I look back at over the course of the last several years in this industry, and when our agency blew up the biggest, it had something to do with the fact that there was a product you could contract with same day, get in the field and sell the same day, and get paid the very next day. There's something to that. And besides all the laughter and talk about, products that might be shiny objects, the more I pay attention to what this thing has to offer, the more I'm confident that it has a spot in your bag in the number 2 position, possibly the number 3, or maybe the first thing you pull out every Monday to make sure that you're paid and ready to go come Friday, which is today, lead day, the day you wrap up the week and begin to prepare for the next. Second thing I'd like to share with you, just a kind of news item before I get into my thoughts on what built to last means. If you haven't already checked out Adam's new website, thing looks pretty fancy. I can guarantee something. I could never do anything like that. And I would not have the time or the patience or the design skills to make it happen. So if you're watching and you haven't yet checked out his website, feel free to do so as well. We'll drop the contact information or the website information for that in the comment section as well. So, built to last. I'm going to share my thoughts on it, and then I'm going to pass the mic over to Adam. But to me, built to last speaks to everything it takes for someone to get licensed, for someone to get in the field, for someone to get contracted, to buy leads before they've ever made a dollar, and to get started. Built to last means that that very same person continues through the survival mode of those first 6 months. The moment they're hit with their first wave of chargebacks, they don't quit. They make it to year one and survive all the way into the moment they can experience thriving. Built to last means that even when it gets hard again, they keep going, because progress is not an upward trajectory, but kind of a roller coaster ride itself. Built to last also, to me, can be broken down into 3 categories. That's what I wrote down. 3 categories. First, why? Like, why are you doing this? What is it for? Who is it for? Almost kind of like when you sell final expense, right? Like, why am I here? Built to last should mean to you at the very core, why are you doing this? Why are you choosing to do something with no guarantees? Well, there's plenty of them actually, but you get the point. Why are you choosing to do this versus anything else you could probably do? What is it for? Who is it for? And what does failure really mean to those that look up to you, depend on you, surround themselves with you, and to you yourself? I say to people several times before, the moment you think about failing, set a 60-minute timer. Think about what that really means, what it looks like, and what it would turn your life into, and then decide if it's something you really want to do. If it is, go forward with that path. If in that 60-second moment you realize how disgusting that feels, don't give up. So built to last starts with why. Why also has to do with more than just the money. It has to do with more than money, because when you have more than you had before, you need to keep going. It has to do with more than the money, because when you don't have any, you have to have faith in yourself. You'll be able to replicate it again. Built to last means to me, number 2, focus. So many out there in this industry, I can tell so many stories and recount so many examples, have what it takes, both skill-wise, leadership-wise, finance-wise, whatever, to build the kind of empires that it takes for private equity to buy them. But they can't stick with or stay in one solid trajectory long enough to ever get there. Don't get me wrong. Over the course of time, course corrections are often necessary and needed. But for the personal producer listening in today, focus is so important in a couple key areas so that you are built to and can last. Focus on a single marketing plan. Is it direct mail? Is it digital? Whatever it is, that's the thing you do over and over and over again every week, no matter what. Focus on a particular area. If it's telesales, what states are you selling in? If it's face-to-face, what counties are you selling in and will rotate through all the time? Focus on a few select products. Now, of course, new ones will come out and you can cycle them in. Old ones go out of the bag at that point in time. But what are your key focus criteria? Focus in the presentation. Here's my practical tip for the day. To make sure that not only are you focused on your business, but your business is simple and your sales presentation is just as incredibly simple. Confused people don't buy insurance. And if you're dealing with a ton of smoke screens, you're dealing with a ton of stuff that you can't overcome because it's not real and you can't overcome a smoke screen, you know what it is? It's that you lack the focus necessary in the presentation to get that person to last all the way to the end to buy from you. So keep it simple. And then lastly this morning, I think that built to last means to me, maybe it means the same thing to you, is work ethic. You have to be willing to outwork your weaknesses, whatever those weaknesses are. Maybe you have difficulty getting in the door. Maybe you have difficulty getting the banking information. Maybe you have difficulty with something that you have to be willing to outwork. You have to be willing to outwork a sales slump. You have to be willing to outwork yourself and get out of your own way and get into the field as many hours as necessary. I got something very interesting to share with you. You ready for this one? I've had several, count them, okay, 2. I've had 2 high-level C-suite executives in the insurance industry, in the final expense business, in our business, that have said to me that they believe that insurance agents are lazy. prove them wrong. 2 high-level C-suite executives, the people that make decisions, design products, pick compensation grids, decide the things that you carry into the home and sell, have told me that they believe that insurance agents are lazy. So if that bothers you, like it bothers me, I would encourage you as you decide and become built to last that you prove them wrong. Prove them wrong by going out today on a day that most people won't and go make money and prove to them that you're not lazy. Go out today and pick up the phone, call through your book of business, your leads, your lapses, or something, and interact with someone that puts money in your bank account. Then you're not lazy. Go out there today on a day that few are willing to do and outwork the rest of them. Go out there today on Friday and make a difference in somebody's life, a generational impact that maybe you'll never quite experience, but that you will do by the product that you sell. Because guess what? If you're on this, listening to this, engaged in this conversation, you yourself are built to last. So Adam, 2 people high up in the food chain of final expense said to me this week that they believe agents are lazy. But do you believe that if somebody's built to last, they really could be lazy? Well, all good. I can see over here.
All
There
right.
you are.
Here
There
we
you
go. Okay, yeah, I was trying to message with a company asking them why my application that I wrote the other day wasn't showing up. So, um, anyways, yeah, I mean, I think that I don't know. There could be people out there that just continue to try to make it. They just don't have the work ethic that's necessary. And I mean, we've talked about that too. Sometimes I think that people do play the blame game. They try to blame everything, but maybe the real reason why they're not succeeding. And a lot of times it is the individual, the person that's not taking the time to get out there to do it. So, but I mean, I think there's a lot to the equation, and I think that's today's topic. Really, I just kind of wanted to put all the pieces to the puzzle together from beginning to end of, what's it going to take? What's it going to take to make it long-term? What are the steps that are necessary that you need to kind of focus on a regular basis to make it long-term in the business? I mean, I'm 22 years in now. The good days have made up for the bad. Not every day is the best, but I've done well enough to still be hanging in there after 22 years. So, that's something I'd say a lot of people, they maybe have a bad day, fairly new to the business. And sometimes all it takes is just that one bad day for people to just give up. I mean, I remember one time I took a guy out, I think we wrote like 6,000 in premium in maybe a day or two. And I think I also got about 25 referrals. And I think I almost made it look too easy. And then, he's all pumped up. He's all excited. He goes out there to door knock leads his first day out on his own. And I didn't hear from him all day. And then I finally heard from him at the end of the day. And he's like, this isn't for me. This isn't for me. I just can't handle this. And I guess that's fine. Maybe this business isn't for everybody, but then again, who knows what could have happened had he stuck it out, had he realized I'm new to this. I got to learn this. Not every day is going to be the best. The guy that took me out's been doing this forever. He knows what he's doing. So I think that maybe has a lot to do with it too. People just maybe giving up a little bit too soon. But I get it too. I mean, when we're working on commission and people have a budget and they know how much money too that they need to make each month, maybe that's a reason they give up too soon. They're not hitting the goals that they need to remain in business. So I think there's a lot to the equation, Chris.
Yeah, I think it's important. You said something there, and I think over the course of the last year, I've been in the process of restructuring my business from everything going to my social to everything going to an LLC to everything going to a corporation. Stay with me on this for a moment. To everything going to a payroll. where I literally get a direct deposit every 2 weeks from Loyal Marketing Group. And it's just enough to cover the regular bills and the regular budget. And it's not a very big salary at that. And it scared me. It scared me to the point where I question on some nights and some days in the field if I'm built to last, because I finally set it up the way it's supposed to be. And the money in the corporate account isn't the money in the bank account. And the money that I thought I used to have in the bank account isn't nearly as big as it used to be because it wasn't set up properly. And I think, as you're going to discuss today, being built to last requires you to set up your business properly, which includes things like tax planning. Welcome to tax season. Real message to those of you listening in today on social media or Free Conference Call HD. File your freaking taxes. And if you don't have someone to help you file your taxes, please reach out. I can put you in contact with an accountant, a tax lawyer, or anybody necessary to help you file your taxes. Adam, I don't think anybody can be built to last or ever buy the opportunity they want from their hard work if they don't file their taxes. Any thoughts on making sure that the people making money and listening to our content don't end up in tax hell?
That's one thing that I think about a lot. I don't think enough people talk about those sort of things. Being that we're 1099, sometimes there's people too that come from other businesses. They're used to just the W-2. They're used to going to work, having the 9 to 5. They get their paycheck. So then when they start getting paid here, they don't understand the difference that this is 1099. This isn't W-2. Taxes are not coming out of your paycheck, and that you do need to track things. You got to keep track of your business. You got to keep track of your expenses, and really you need a pay as you go with your taxes, whether that's quarterly or even monthly, just sending money to the IRS. I think a lot of people, including myself, have gotten into having some tax issues in this business, having maybe one big year that didn't realize how much income we actually had coming in. Maybe didn't pay enough in throughout the year, and then all of a sudden you do your taxes and you get hit with a real big amount of money that you got to pay out. That happened to me, I think, back in like 2016, 2017, and I had to get put on a payment plan, and that's no fun either. Where you're paying back taxes, and then they hit you with interest, they hit you with fees. It gets to be pretty ridiculous. So
Donald Trump, please cancel taxes.
Yeah,
or something.
boy, that'd be awesome.
Know.
I mean, I saw something about I saw something posted the other day that it talking about getting rid of income taxes on anybody who earns under $150,000 a year. I mean, that would be pretty awesome. I mean, I'd say a lot of our agents kind of fall into that category, so that could definitely help. Yeah, that could definitely help. Not having to worry about the income tax. But yeah, we're not there yet, but hopefully soon. It is something though that I think that, I mean, I remember, working on the inside with a carrier and doing agent contracting, and so many times that was the one thing that would pop up were tax liens. And then they wouldn't want to move forward if the debt was too high. And I mean, being that I've been there, it's a tough situation. It's a tough situation, but it's just important to plan ahead and be responsible. And I just think that, like I mentioned earlier, just a lot of people that come from other types of businesses, they don't understand, and they might just not know going in the way that it works, and that you got to set money aside for taxes.
Exactly. I think also being built to last, outside of the mindset of what I opened with today, requires the basics that you guys hear about every single day. But it's important to remind yourself, especially if you're struggling or finally breaking through, to keep doing what you're doing. Tom Masterson said this week that he feels like he's finally in a spot he hasn't been in years. And Tom has been on a trajectory where he started leads about August, September, maybe early October, and it's now mid-March, and he's finally getting to the point where he feels like he's where he's supposed to be. That's a lot of time, but it takes a lot of time to sometimes get to the breakthrough you've been trying to get to. So being built to last doesn't just happen the day you sign up for leads, the day you get your first direct mail, the day you close your first application. It takes a really long time to get there. Built to last might also mean to some people listening in today that Even when you get a chargeback, you figure out how not to let that slow you down. Even when you get into the home and they don't buy from you, what can you do better? Not letting the little things destroy your long-term progression. I mean, Adam, I think sometimes even in leadership, I need to get out of my own way sometimes, turn the mic over to other people, let them talk, let them lead, and let them inspire. Because if an agency is built to last, it can't be dependent on one person. So I think a lot of times being built to last for personal producers, and maybe what do you think? Get out of your own way and just get into the field sometimes.
Yeah, definitely. I think it helps too, when leadership knows what they're doing in the business. You know, surrounding yourself around people that, uh, have been out in the field, that know the business, that understand the business. And I think that there's a lot of fakers out there. There's people that, and well, you know what? But I think the problem is a lot of the different organizations, they push people to recruit so quickly. Like that's like just part of the deal. Like, well, you get licensed, you get contracted with carriers, and next step, give us a list of 10 people that who should we call first that could do the same thing that you're doing? And then what happens is that it's like the blind leading the blind. And, that's another issue I think in the business with,
Yeah.
I don't know. I would almost consider that like multi-level marketing, where I think that when you're surrounding yourself around people like, you and I, Chris, I mean, we've been doing this a long time. We know the business. We know how, the ins and outs of the business. We probably don't know everything, but I think we know enough to point people in the right direction to make it last in the business. Like I said, talking about our topic today. I mean, I think people should want to work with people that have stuck it out, that aren't just there one day and gone the next.
Yeah, I also think it's important to recognize, built to last means leadership is putting things in people's hands that they've tested and tried and have proven that there's some place for it in your personal production or your business. Before we launched and released the combined product across our distribution, we had somebody try it. I don't have as many days in the field as I used to. I knew I wasn't going to give it a fair shake. So I put it right in Tom Dixon's hands. And I said, test this out. Tell me if it works. Tell me if it sucks. Tell me if we should do it. And he wrote over $20,000 in premium for a 30-day period of time. I've checked the commission statements. That money went into his bank account, and he battle tested the product and proved that it had a place in our bag. So being built to last as an agency means we don't ask you to do something we haven't tried and tested and have proven that it's going to work. Adam, before we transition over to your topic today, any closing thoughts to those dialed into the conference call that need today to be successful and prove to themselves they're built to last themselves?
Just stick with it. Like I said, the good days, they make up for the bad. We all go through sales slumps. We all, like I said, I mean, heck, don't let the highs outweigh the lows, I guess you could say. Sometimes I think we have a really, really good week, and sometimes people maybe get comfortable. And this isn't the sort of business where you can get comfortable. You just got to keep going. And you hit your goals earlier in the week, you got to keep going. We don't know what tomorrow's going to bring. We don't know what next week's going to look like or next month. Who knows? So you just kind of have to stay pretty level-headed, I think, in the business. And like I said, when things are going great, you just got to keep going. And when things are going bad, you just got to keep going too. Stick with it and just don't give up. Like the guy that went out with me one day or 2 days, and then first day out in the field flopped and said, "This is enough." I mean, you're passing up on an opportunity where you can really, really make a good income.
Yeah. Don't let the highs get too high and the lows get too low. I saw a commission statement this morning from some Medicare deposits, and I saw it and I got excited. Not too excited, not too high, but I said to myself, thank God. Thank God I keep going, keep pushing, keep working, because that money was well needed for today's income. Those of you on Free Conference Call HD, have an outstanding day in the field. Remember, have a positive conclusion to your week. Put some profit in your bank account at the end of the week and push yourself to remind yourself that you're built to last if you were here today. I'm going to hang up and we're going to transition exclusively onto social media, YouTube, Facebook, MySpace. No, I'm kidding. You know where we are. See us over there. We're going to spend the next 30 minutes discussing more about being built to last?
Yeah. So, like I said, I mean, this is just a topic that I've done training on forever. I mean, this is probably one of the first ones I ever did where I just kind of put together a bunch of bullet points of things that I always felt that would be necessary for someone to make it long term in the business. And really, it's just, I would say it's more of like a step by step sort of thing where you do all these sort of things. I don't see where failure could really be an option. So let's start running through these. You know, very simple. I mean, first thing, you gotta believe in yourself. You gotta know going in what the business is going to look like, but you also, like I said, you can't give up too soon. You got to know that you're going to do well at this. You got to have that sort of confidence. But I think that's really with any business, any job. I don't know how anybody could be in anything and be like, man, I'm not good at this or whatever. It happens, I guess. But yeah, it's just important to have that internal belief. Get rid of the ego and be willing to learn from those who are better than you. That's just another one. I think that sometimes people's egos is what holds them back. Maybe they had a good month. Maybe they're brand new to the business and they just had an awesome month. And then right away they're an expert. Right away they're an expert, and they don't want to listen to anybody else. And sometimes I think that's what holds people back too, because we can never really stop learning. I think that we all get better from helping each other out. But I've never really sat around and been like, yeah, I know this business. I don't need to talk to anybody else about it. I just think we can always get better. And there's people out there that are better than us. So, we got to do what we can to take advantage of that and learn from those that are better than us, that have been more successful than us. One thing I don't think I have on here, Chris, as I'm talking, I think another good point on this would be don't take advice from people that are not as successful as you are. That's something that I feel like maybe held me back a little bit in the past. Too many people get in my head about different things. People that weren't as successful as I was, that always had a lot of opinions. And maybe people that, where the glass was always half full. And I'm just not that type of person. Yeah. Yeah. Or half empty. I mean, yeah. I'm not the half empty type of person. I mean, I'm pretty positive. I always try to stay on that side of things. I get down on myself a little bit when things aren't going great, but that's just, I don't know. I think that's what people that are successful have to do. So, get rid of the ego, be willing to learn from those that are better than you. And also don't take advice from people that aren't as good as you. I'm sure you'd probably agree with that, Chris.
Yeah. I mean, I saw something recently where somebody wanted to move their contracts from one place to another. And I said, you realize the person that you want to move your contract to hasn't ever built any kind of independent distribution? I'm not saying they have to be doing 10 million a year, but they've never done any million a year. I'm like, this doesn't make any kind of practical business sense. People can't take you where they haven't been themselves. And I think that's an important understanding in this business. But being built to last means showing a proven track record of success and struggle to get where they currently are.
Oh, yeah, most definitely. Having a business plan, I think, is also important. You got to understand this is a different market. I keep hearing this term lately. I don't know. My daughter keeps saying it about being built different. But I think in final expense, you got to be built different.
Oh, yeah.
It's a different animal for sure that we're trying to tackle out there. And you got to know what I think it takes a certain type of personality to do what we do. You got to be, I don't know, you can't be like overly professional. You got to be kind of laid back. You got to know how to talk to people. And it's a different market. You got to understand it's a little bit different. One example would be even like my dad, he was in the Medicare business forever. And I remember growing up, I mean, the way his week looked like was Monday was his office day. He spent his Monday setting up his appointments himself for the remainder of the week. He'd be setting up appointments, Tuesday all the way through Friday, maybe even Saturday sometimes. And I think that in final expense, you can't do that. You can't take Monday and set up your whole week. You could call on Monday and you could set up appointments for Tuesday and maybe Wednesday at the latest. But the further out you set up those appointments, the higher the likelihood that the people are not going to be home. So that's the thing. You got to do things a little bit different. You can't do that. You can't spend the whole day on Monday setting up your whole week, because then on Thursday and Friday, you're going to be all excited about all these appointments you set, and a good portion of them are not going to be there. So you got to be able to adapt to changing in your work habits, how you do things. And I think that those that are able to adapt do a good job. So many agents I've worked with in the past that have failed, I think, is because they were set in their ways. This was how they did their business. This is how it's always been done. And then I would tell them, well, this is how we do it. Mm-hmm. And they didn't want to adapt. They didn't want to change their method of how they did their business. But it's like, heck, you've been failing doing it the way that you're doing. More than likely, usually when people are looking for a new opportunity, it's because it's not working with where they're at.
Yeah.
So figure out, well, what's, heck, I'm always willing to adapt. Like if someone is out there crushing it, like, heck, look at Chris, like even like me and you, when I first started working together with you, you were always, you had your appointment setter that'd be setting up the appointments for you. I never did it that way, but you were making more sales than I was. So heck, I was willing to adapt, and with things that worked. Like I said, I'm not afraid to adapt, especially if it's working for somebody else. I've always kind of had that mindset of, well, if it's working for someone else and they're successful at it, it can work for me too. Yeah. As long as I'm willing to put in the same sort of effort that they are.
Yeah. 2 little side notes on adaptation, because I think a lot of agents in a moment of struggle, they think rapid, drastic, crazy changes, but adaptations are like this. They're like evolutionary steps. They're not, hard left changes. Adaptions on the appointment setting. It is harder than ever to get people on the phone. I don't care what other people say. If you're dialing for yourself, you've got more time in your life than I do. It's hard for appointment people to get people on the phone. I've watched the spreadsheets. I've looked at the data. It's difficult. I've sat in the homes and watched. I've sent them 40, 50, 60 leads and seen VM, because people aren't picking up the phone. We've adapted and added strategies like texting. We worked this week to add a texting campaign or script in Spanish. If someone hangs up on the appointment center and says, oh, no English, they're going to hammer back in Spanish now to respond in that situation. I've tested the idea of sending video texts and talking about working with people that know more than you do in certain areas. Our CRM folks said, well, video texting is different than texting. It may work, it may not work. Like, that's putting resources to work to adapt to difficulties. Another idea, we've been trying the certain lead that we've been using hasn't been working the way it was working. Okay, let's try one this way and one that way. Let's A/B test the concept and see what the variables are. Well, that one's working better than this one. Let's make some adaptations and adjustments. And I think being built to last means you're adapting incrementally, not making crazy wild changes, to ever get where you're trying to go.
All right, moving forward. Sorry, I was going back to reading my messages from the carrier, wondering why I hadn't. I'm thinking it must be why. Like I wrote an app and it just wasn't showing up. And
did you push submit?
I hit submit, but I'm looking, like I wrote 3 apps I think this week with this carrier, and I haven't got paid on one of them yet. So I'm figuring, like, what the heck's going on here? And she said that one of the applications was in licensing. So I don't know what that means. I know that I just renewed my Illinois license. So maybe that's it. Maybe they had to re-look me up to make sure I was still active or something. I don't know. Yeah. Anyways, I was just taking a look at that to figure out why that hadn't been resolved yet. So anyways, have a marketing budget and be disciplined with it. It's important. You're running a business. any business, there's expense involved. Leads is the major expense in our business. But you got to remember, we're talking long term in the business. You want to make it last. You got to be responsible with your business, and you have to be responsible with your money. And you need to focus on setting money aside every single sale that you make. I've always said, if anything, set up a separate bank account if you need to. Every time you get paid, transfer 20% of that deposit over to your leads bank account and pretend like you never even seen that money. And at least then when your leads come in or when you need to place another lead order, you already have that money set aside. Because I've dealt with agents in the past that were not responsible with their money. They were great at selling, but they were out of the business too soon because they were not able to keep their business up and running because they didn't have that money set aside for the leads. So, I mean, you can be great at selling and that's awesome. But at the end of the day, if you're not responsible on the other side, you're not going to last, you know? And that's what we're talking about today is longevity and making it last. And that's why it's important. And live on half of what you earn. You know, Chris talked about taxes too a little bit ago. So right there, you know, I'm talking about setting money aside for leads. Chris talked a little bit earlier about taxes. So right there, you got to focus really on living about half of what you earn. At the end of the year, if you have more money set aside than what you're going to owe in taxes, that's a good thing. But you'd rather have more than enough set aside than not enough, because like I said in the past, that's what happened to me. I ended up having to get on a payment plan, and then it's like you end up owing a heck of a lot more than what you would actually owe if you got to get on a payment plan, because they hit you with major interest and penalties.
Yeah. You know what's interesting too? I heard, and I commented last night, I tried to do a live video in the car. It was dark. It looked like a dungeon. But Adam, when we talk about having a long-term success and being built to last, what's your opinion? Is it the IMO or upline or agency's fault when someone fails? Or most of the time, is it the agent's fault and they failed themselves when they were given all the things necessary, you know, to succeed?
You know, honestly, Chris, I think it's maybe it really depends on the scenario. I think if it's an individual agent, I think an individual agent can succeed anywhere when it comes to, when it comes to writing business, ordering leads. Honestly, I mean, I don't know. I think it's kind of hard to really say this guy failed at this organization because of this organization. If the organization is successful and other agents have been successful there, well, same thing. You know, it's not like people are out there like, I'm going to go after this guy. I want to make sure this guy fails. I just don't think that that's how it is. And I mean, if anything, those are the people with the ego issues that are playing the blame game of why everywhere they go, they continue to fail. But I think from like a growth perspective, you know, one thing I've struggled with, Chris, is when you have agents with 6, 7, 8, 9 carriers, and they write a piece of business with one, it falls off, and then rather than writing the business there, they write a business with the next carrier because you know they got to pay their rent, and then that same piece of business falls off. So then, well, they still have their car payment, Chris. So now they're writing it with the third carrier. You know, and then after that, they have other bills that they got to pay, credit card bills.
Then they write themselves. Then they write their sister, and then they write their child, and then the carrier doesn't catch that it's a controlled business, so they advance on it all, and then it's just it just proves the point over and over again that less is more. Like, I told an agent recently, no, I'm not contracting that person with more companies. No, they don't need it, and it's not a good idea. And it's buried us in roll up because we thought everyone's going to do it the right way. And I'll give them 6 companies and they'll all use them strategically and we'll all be built to last together. Unfortunately, it's setting people up for failure when you're giving them too much to handle just the same way.
Yeah. For me, it's harder to manage. It's harder to track the business. It's harder to keep up with the agents when they're writing business all over the place. And overrides aren't even real things when you end up having to pay back the agent's portion of the commissions. Yeah. You know, they go out on vacation while I'm struggling to pay off their debt.
Yeah, it's
So,
obscene.
so that's the thing that I think that focusing on simplicity is important, especially when you want to build. Don't contract agents with everybody across the globe. That's what's going to hurt you. And I think people hear too much of the other side of, well, you want to be able to control that agent and make sure that they have all their contracts with you. Well, that's fine and dandy, but when they're writing business with 20 different carriers, they're setting you up for roll-up debt with 20 different carriers.
Yeah.
And it's hard to get out of. It's a tough hole to dig yourself out of. So I think from an agency standpoint, I think focusing on simplicity is very important. Let's see, where else we at here, Chris? So the next one, pretty simple. Order leads every week and work geographically smart.
That's so important.
Yeah, especially when you're in the field. The great thing about direct mail leads is that you can, at least by me, I can order direct mail leads by zip code. So I can place a lead order in one zip code. The next week, I could place it in the next zip code over. And you could almost put like a circle on a map and just kind of go around that circle and hit all those zip codes. And what's nice about that is that each week your leads are going to be fairly close together. Even leads that you weren't able to get to last week, they're probably going to still be pretty close to the leads that you're working this week. And that's why it's important to be geographically smart. I know one of your guys, Chris, was talking on a call earlier this week just about how he's loving being back on direct mail.
Absolutely.
And I'm telling you, boy, it does make a difference. And because to me, time is money. And you're just going to get so much more done in the day on working the direct mail leads than any other leads where the leads are spread out all over the place. So, direct mail especially for field sales is definitely the way to go. But you don't just be ordering by county. I've seen people do that, or even the lead vendors, maybe they don't explain it properly. Like if I were to order leads, Chris, in Cook County out by me, if I just did Cook County, I mean, it would be like a Facebook campaign. I would have leads all over the place and it just wouldn't make any sense. So that's why you got to be geographically smart with it. And when you're ordering by zip code, just like your agent talked about earlier this week, those leads are 2, 3, 4, 5 minutes apart from one another. And you can take 20 leads and you could, if you're not sitting in your car, like, piddling around or whatever, I mean, you could easily door knock 20 leads in 3 or 4 hours.
Yeah.
If you're not catching people at home, hopefully you catch people at home and you get through the whole day on the 20 leads. But I mean, I've worked 20 leads in 4 hours and then go around and do it again.
Yep. I think it's important to understand a little subtext to that point, which is very powerful, is urban versus rural. In rural markets, you're going to drive a little bit further. The quality of business is going to be statistically a little bit better, but you're going to have to work harder and drive further to get it. In an urban market, you're going to be able to see significantly more people in significantly less time. You might have slightly lower persistency with it, but you're going to make up for it in the volume of people that you see. Regardless of it, you have to work geographically smart. Adam, when I started in the business, I had someone say on stage at an NASB convention, own your territory. I'm like, that's brilliant. Like, I hadn't even thought about that. I was working in Reading, New Jersey, Delaware, Pennsylvania, all over the place. Every month it was somewhere different. And Keith Thomason said on stage, own your market. Like, all right, I'll just own Philadelphia. And I went in a semicircle in and around Philadelphia every year, over and over, over and over. And I was geographically smart. Even just door knocking. If you can't door knock 25 doors in a day in an urban market, you're not actually working. So that's such a valuable point in understanding as well, rural versus urban, when you decide which markets you're going to work in.
Well, another thing, Chris, talking about geographically smart, something that just came to me is even like for those of you that are looking to build and grow.
Hmm.
It's a lot easier to build and grow especially when you're out in the field, when you're recruiting in your backyard, compared to just trying to take over the entire country. Like, snap your fingers. I think, everybody wants to like build this empire, but you got to start small. You got to start in your backyard, because you know what? Not everybody's going to make it. But when you're working with agents that are in your backyard, makes it a lot easier. If they fail, well, heck, you already got leads that you can go work that maybe they failed on. And it makes more sense to start small and then kind of build out from there, rather than just trying to take over the entire globe like overnight. It just doesn't happen. So I
It has
think,
been, yeah.
working geographically smart, to me, I've always done best as well, just kind of focusing on, the local agents and then just kind of building out from there.
Makes me think, I wonder if Lincoln was up to something with their regional model. I never understood it until you think about it bigger. Like the people that have the carriers that have been around the longest built off of regional, management and regional distribution. Maybe there is something to it.
Yeah. I mean, I kind of got used to it when I was there. Um, and, it makes sense, you build up one area. If you really think about it, isn't that really how most businesses are anyways?
Hmm.
Like, they don't just suddenly put up like what Starbucks, they started in Seattle, right? So they started there and just kind of
Yep.
branched out from there, right? It's
Yeah.
not like they just suddenly put up, built Starbucks in every single state.
No.
No, they started in Seattle and then they built out from there.
Yeah, the local restaurant or brewery-ish type place that recently opened a breakfast place that opened across the street from itself. Like they're targeting two different types of when you're going to eat, breakfast versus dinner, two different dining models, two different strategies altogether. They don't compete against themselves, but it's the same ownership, literally across the street. So talk about building geographically smart.
Yeah. Yeah. It just makes sense. Start small and then just kind of build out from there, because again, I mean, let's say that you're recruiting agents in multiple states. Let's say you recruit a guy in Texas, and he wants leads, Chris, and, you're giving him leads every single week. And then he fails, he falls out of the business. His business starts falling off. Like, do you really want to have to go down to Texas all the time to try to keep his business on the books and to work the leads that he didn't work and like all that other stuff? No.
I did it. I went to Louisiana to clean up
Yeah.
after leads I was left with. I had 60 some leads, and the IMO at the time said, I'm going to charge your card no matter if you like it or not. What you do with the leads at that point is completely up to you. And they lit up my card for over $3,000 over leads in Louisiana when I lived in New Jersey. And I said, well, either I can wipe my ass with these leads or I can go work them. But so I went and worked them. So I've lived the other end of that before.
Yeah. I just think so much of this industry, Chris, is like people out there like trying to run the wild, wild west. It's just, there's no structure. It's just everybody's trying to contract everybody all over the place. And like, let's just keep it simple.
Mhm.
Focus on simplicity and then just kind of build from there.
Yeah. Like I'm willing to eat crow on it if I'm wrong, but when we talk simplicity, you're a huge fan of American Amicable. I've qualified for the trip that didn't happen in Greece. That would have been fun. I mean, looking at what combined offers paired with American Amicable, what else do you need? Looking at what that single product does paired against somebody else's favorite, I mean, what else do you need as a 1-2 combination? And, it doesn't have to be combined. You could call it whatever you want. When you can find a 1-2 combination as a personal producer, that is so strategically smart. You're gonna look back and say, I'm glad I did that if you do it.
Well, you're not only that, Chris, you're gonna reap the benefits and the rewards from these carriers.
Mm-hmm.
They all have carrier conventions. I mean, the last, I don't know, few weeks, few months, I don't know. I feel like it's small, but like American Amicable, they throw me a $50 deposit here and there. I don't know what it's for. I guess just from writing business. Thanks.
Bonus bucks. Yep.
Yeah, bonus bucks or whatever. I just suddenly see like a $50 deposit in my account. But just, there's lots of carriers out there that do these little things. By being consistent with writing business, you're going to be rewarded. And I mean, you're going to surround yourself around a lot of very successful people when you make these different carrier conventions. And that's why I think it's something that's so important for an agent to focus on too. Like, yeah, it's great to win a trip. And I've been into some pretty awesome places, Monaco, the Dominican, Panama, I mean, just all over the place. And, I love going on these trips, but it's about the people that you're surrounding yourself around on these trips. Going back to what we're talking about, where you're communicating with people that are more successful than you are, that can help you to get better. Mm-hmm. And that's one great thing about making these trips. I mean, not only is it great to make the trip, but you're going to come back better than before you went, because you're going to be surrounded around people that are better than you, that are going to help you, or at least, make you get better if you're willing to listen to them. Mm-hmm. But if you're writing business all over the place, it's very difficult to make a carrier convention. So that's why it's so focused. If you really, focus on the one, and then, maybe have a backup when you need it. Have some structure, know what your day is going to look like. Use a presentation, know the products, the underwriting, and how to calculate premiums. There's several tools out there that make it a heck of a lot easier. If you don't have a presentation, let me know. I can send you one. I have a PDF. I have a script presentation that's worked for many years for me. But you got to have that structure. Same thing. This isn't a 9 to 5. You don't have a boss telling you when you got to be to work. You got to be disciplined with your business. But with that, you need to know what your day is going to look like. Right now, again, Mondays and Fridays, I'm in the office. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursdays, I'm out in the field. But I know what my week's going to look like. My goal is to have a steady flow of appointments set 3 days out of those 5, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. And I know going in that's what my week's going to look like. I'm going to have the appointments. I'm going to have the leads. I know that if I don't have appointments set, well, I'm going to be door knocking, and I'm going to do everything that I can that's necessary to sit in front of people while I'm out in the field. That's what I'm out there to do. I mean, I had one the other day, Chris. I mean, I went the whole day without writing anything, and I was in an area, and I was just thinking, who can I go see? And then I remembered I had a client of mine that she called me about 2 months ago, and she said, my ex-husband, we're kind of getting back together. And she said, he needs some insurance. So I need you to come by and see what you can do to help him. And then I just was never able to get back in touch with her. I tried calling her, and I don't know, I left her a voicemail. She even still had the voicemail on her phone from a month ago. She showed me. And she showed me because I ended up just dropping by there the other day. I dropped by and I said, hey, Carolyn, I know you had reached out to me, and I know this is important, and I know he needs this. So we need to do what we can to help him. And he wasn't there at the time. And she said, well, he'll probably be back around 5:30 or so. And I said, well, why don't you just give me a call? Let me know, when he's there, because I'm going to be in this area for a while. And I had just left an appointment, and I got a phone call from her. And she said, yeah, he's going to be here about 5:30 if you want to come back. And I'm like, sure, sounds good. And I mean, that was a big one I wrote. It was $172 a month. So, pretty big sale. But like I said, those are the sort of things, leads, are important, but figure out ways to make sales. I don't like going home without anything. And sometimes you just got to brainstorm and figure things out.
That's such a huge tip. Where can I go? Who's around here? Who have I sold? Who's fallen off? Who likes me? Who's got something that I can go back and deal with? Yeah. That's huge.
Exactly. Figure out ways. And I mean, a good portion of the sales that I made this week, Chris, were not off of leads. They were off of those sort of things, off of, working some lapse policy holders. I wrote a pretty good one. I think $80 a month on one. And then the other, like I said, the one yesterday or a couple days ago that was just, again, brainstorming, just kind of trying to remember who else can I go see that's in this area. Oh yeah, I forgot. She called me. We never did really do anything with that. and ended up the guy was like 76 years old. I mean, wrote the guy, yeah, I think it was a $15,000 policy. It was like 170 something a month at that age.
Nice.
So, it was a good sale. And she's got, I think, a total of 50,000 in coverage with me. She's probably paying around $300 a month, I bet, in a few different policies with me. So I'm confident that business is that I wrote the other day is going to stick too.
And people say, man, they just can't afford what I'm offering them. And I'm showing them 30, 40 bucks a month and they just can't afford it. Man, you're not giving the value. That's the problem here. We have clients that have added on coverage over a decade that are now paying a lot of money for a lot of insurance because it's important to them and they value it. So having a long-term career like Adam is saying right now means working your book of business like we also trained on Thursday.
Yeah. And again, when you need to make money, you're going to figure out ways to go out and make money. Like I wasn't having a whole lot of success on the leads. I was door knocking them, just getting shut down a lot. It happens. I'm already out in the field. I could go home and pout about it, or I could find some people to go see where I can make some money. And I'm in a much better mood when I get home, Chris, when I come home with premium. And my wife's a lot happier too.
But you didn't sell your wife 3 policies with 4 companies just to pay the mortgage?
I tried to. Get used to getting rejected. You talked about this, Chris, the no's, the more no's you get, the more yeses you're going to get, or the closer you are to the next yes. It's part of the business, get used to getting rejected. If you're not getting rejected, you're not out seeing enough people. Ask questions, listening sells. My presentation, I ask a lot of questions that hit home that when by the time I leave, the client's like giving me a big hug. They're happy. They know that I care, but a lot of it is by asking questions and getting clients involved, talking about something that is important with something that we know that they need, which are these 2 things: focusing on the need and focusing on affordability. Those are the questions that I ask in the presentation. Had you, you mailed this card, and what was it that got you thinking about this? Had you recently experienced a funeral? Just little things like that. You've been through a funeral. Who passed away? Was there insurance involved? Was it enough? Did the family have to pitch in? I mean, these are questions that are hitting home with the client. In my opinion, you could say what you want, but 90% of the people we sit down with, the reason they sent that card back is because at some point in their life, they had been through a situation where somebody passed, they weren't prepared, the whole family had to worry about pitching in to pay for it, and they don't want to put their family in that situation. So those are the sort of questions that I'm asking, and that's how I'm getting them involved. They're talking about those sort of situations that they had experienced, and we're making it real. And I'm letting them know, well, I'll make sure that your family's not going to have to worry about going through that when you die. And then talking about affordability. Those are really the 2 things that matter: focusing on the need, making sure they have enough coverage for what they need it for, and then making sure that they can afford it. Don't sell based on how much commission you're going to make. I think people can tell the difference when you're looking out for them compared to when you're just looking out for yourself. And if you're focusing on selling based off of how much commission you're going to make, you're going to be writing too large of premiums, more than likely, that the person cannot afford, and that business is not going to stay on the books. So yeah, don't look out for yourself. Always do what's best in the best interest of your client. You look out for them. And another thing with that, Chris, too, that means you don't need to be a professional replacer of business. There's people out there that a good portion of their business they write is on replacements, and a lot of those replacements are probably policies that they had no business even replacing. So is that really in the best interest of the client? Let's say a policy is 22 months old, Chris, and 2 more months they're past the contestable period. So is that a piece of business that you should replace? Or should you maybe tell the client, that's a good policy. If I were you, I would keep that. If anything, you might want to consider adding to what you have. And I think the client appreciates it too when you're upfront and honest about those sort of things. And when you say those sort of things to your client, they're going to say, wow, this guy really does care about my best interests. He's not just trying to make another sale like the last guy that was here.
Yeah, I think the challenging part there is there are times you have to put the person in a better situation, but there are times where replacing the policy is not in the best interest of the client. And I always said you have to put people ahead of people ahead of premium. That's what it was.
Yeah.
And I've seen agents before calculating their commissions under the table before I've even hit the submit button. I mean, what incredibly bad voodoo, or karma. Like, stop. What are you doing right now? This is horrible. No, I don't even calculate commissions at all. Like, all I'm doing is keeping track of the amount of premium to make sure I've accomplished the goal. But I'm not sitting there thinking, dang, look at that, $1,800 before I've walked out the door. Bad juju. Because what ends up happening is you're putting yourself ahead of their best interests, and then it just never works out the way it's supposed to. These people honestly are depending on that little old final expense policy to be there when they're dead. And that has to mean something for you in this business.
Yeah. And honestly, Chris, these days, premiums are higher. And the client understands that. Again, focusing on the need, if they want to be buried, like, they need at least $15,000 in coverage, in my opinion. And I have so many clients that I wrote $10,000 policies on back in the day, where now it's just not enough. Mm-hmm. So they know going in, they may have to pay a little bit more, and they're willing to. And again, because they know what happens when they don't have this, and they would much rather sacrifice other things to put their family in a good situation when they pass. So assume the sale. I always walk in with that mindset of, I'm here to write this policy. I'm not here to just present and provide them with information.
Drop you a quote.
Yeah. And I've heard someone once said, you got to ask for the sale. I don't really ask. I assume. Mm-hmm. I assume that's why I'm there. I mean, I kind of go straight through the process. I don't sit there and ask them, so which one you want to go with? Like, I just assume. If I put an option out there and they say that looks good, I don't say, okay, so you want to go with that one yet? No, I just open it back up to them being able to think about it. They say that looks good. I say, who's your beneficiary going to be? What's your middle initial?
Go ahead and grab your ID so I can say that I saw it.
Yeah, you assume the sale. And sometimes I think when you ask for the sale, that's where the tension builds up. That's where it gets like uncomfortable. And so make it a smooth process. Chris, the other day, the one that I wrote, the $172 a month one, I actually used the bathroom clothes.
Bathroom clothes. Ladies and gentlemen, are you ready for the bathroom clothes?
Yeah, I used the bathroom clothes. We're sitting there and, everything sounds good. I'll get back to you on Monday, Adam. And, I just got to look over my budget over the weekend, and I'll get back to you on Monday. And I mean, he already told me like when he received his Social Security, and I think it was like the beginning of the month that he gets paid. We know that we don't need any money right now if he doesn't have it. So, and again, I was sitting there with my old client and then her significant other. They were married, now they're divorced, but they're getting back together or whatever. And so anyways, I just know how it is. A lot of times I need to get out of the room. Like, there's decisions that need to be made. I knew she wanted to say something to him, but probably not with me sitting there. And so that's when when I can just kind of tell, like, if I get up and go somewhere, there's a good chance I'm going to come back and we're going to be able to move forward here. So that's where, when I kind of feel that tension, I just right away, I just ask, would you mind if I use your bathroom real quick? And I get out of the room. Even if I don't got to go, I'll just sit in the bathroom for 5 minutes, play around on my phone, look at Facebook.
Yeah. Or stand there, because there's really not a good place to sit.
Yeah. Turn the faucet on, turn the faucet on. I'm washing my hands. And then that's what happened. I walked back out, and then they were ready to move forward. So I learned that one from my dad. Yeah. My dad taught me that one, get out of the room and, let them talk. she wants to bitch that guy out and tell him that you need to do this, but she don't want to bitch him out in front of me.
Yeah, when in doubt, go to the bathroom and come back, and you're either going to get it or you won't, but at least you'll be able to go ready at the next sale.
That's it. Obtain referrals. Referrals are free leads. The only cost, that's it. That's the only cost for a referral is that you have to ask. If you don't ask, you're not going to get them. So obtain as many referrals as you can. When you're paying for leads, I mean, it's a big investment. I'm investing on average probably around $800 every week for leads. So the more sales I can make outside of that investment, the easier it's going to be. Heck, really, if you think about it, one sale off a referral each week will pay for my leads. So maybe just going with that mindset, rather than having to focus on the $800 you're paying for leads, focus on that one referral that's going to pay for your leads each week. Stop avoiding your fears. Again, it's you gotta be built different in final expense. Remember, Chris? You got to stop avoiding your fears when it comes to door knocking. I had a guy say to me once, Chris, I don't want to door knock leads because I wouldn't want someone just showing up at my house. That's not the mindset that you want to have. You want to have that mindset of that you're just out there to help people. And remember, like you talked about earlier, Chris, with the fact that people just don't answer their phones. Sometimes you just gotta door knock. I remember when I first got in the business, Chris, in 2003, they talked so much about this do not call list that it was like just coming around back then. Like now people don't talk about it a whole lot anymore, the do not call registry or whatever. But back then, I remember this manager, this office I was working in, I was 21 years old. We were having this discussion about the do not call list. And he said, the great thing about that, though, is that there's not a do not knock list. And yeah, kind of got me thinking, why focus so much on the fact that there's people that don't want you calling them? Let's go see them. Let's go knock on their door.
It's probably
show them
never
the
been
card that
easier.
they filled out.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, just got to get out of your comfort zone with that. And if you're uncomfortable, the best way to get comfortable is just by going out there and doing it. Same thing with a presentation, just got to learn it. Just got to listen to it. I mean, heck, you can go back on my podcast and listen to it in the car, the presentation and learning about it. You got to put the time in, you got to work at least 40 hours every week. This isn't a 9 to 5 job. It's more like a 9 to 9. For me, sometimes it's like a 9 to 1 a.m. There's a lot going on. There's a lot of things we got to do. And, especially when I'm in like grow mode, like, I mean, my mind is always going and just trying to do what I can to come up with different ideas and things that can help with moving forward with things. So, but you got to put the time in. Those that are successful, I bet you don't got to be the best at sales. The person that's going to put the time in is going to be more successful than the great salesman that's not willing to put the time in.
Yeah, my last point on built to last in my open was work ethic. Like you have to be willing to outwork your weakness. You have to be willing to outwork a slump. You have to be willing to outwork yourself and those around you. And you have to be willing to work when others aren't. Like today's the perfect day to go out and see people that others aren't willing to do. Saturday, like if you open your bank account and there's not enough money there to cover April 1st, Saturday, like if you had a job and you worked 40 hours and you knew you didn't have enough money, you would work overtime or a second job. So Saturdays are the overtime equivalent in final expense.
Yeah, I got 2 appointments tomorrow on Saturday, Chris. I mean, it's just part of the business. People that, this guy had door knocked the other day. Well, my wife, she's working during the day. Well, what's the best time to catch up? I mean, I could come out here tonight. He said, well, Saturdays are best. Okay, well, I'll sacrifice an hour or 2 on my Saturday to make a couple $1,000s. So why not? And then I had another one, kind of the same thing. So I have 2 appointments, husband and wives, on Saturday tomorrow. Part of it. You got to do what you got to do. Have more reasons why you should be working and less excuses why you can't be working. I mean, I had a guy tell me once he couldn't work because his windshield wipers were broken. Like, go buy new wipers. You know, you could go to AutoZone and they can put new ones on for you. It's not that difficult. But just that's the thing. I mean, so many, like, we talk about accountability, Chris, and that's just what so much of this is. And so many people would rather have excuses why they're failing rather than reasons why they need to succeed.
Mm-hmm.
Keep up with your business. We talk so much about writing new business, but it's kind of a pain when you got to write 2 new pieces of business to get paid on one. And that's what I'm talking about, is when you have chargebacks and you owe money. Well, you got to write the one app to clear that. And then if you want to get paid, well, then you got to write the next one. So it's part of the business, but the more you keep up with your business and you keep up with your policyholders, the less you're going to have to worry about that sort of stuff, and the less you're going to have to worry about chargebacks. People are taking out a policy for a reason, and the reason wasn't for it to lapse in 2 months. So, but so many agents, they just let that business fall off and they never even contact the client. It's like, why not? Like, they didn't go in this with the intention of losing a policy. No. So do what you can to help the person. Half the time they don't even realize it's lapsing. It's a marathon. It's not a sprint. Success doesn't happen overnight. You can't go out there one day and fail and say, this isn't for me. You got to realize this is like it's like I said, the good days are going to make up for the bad. You can't, one day is a very small sample size. Don't fear failure. The more that, you're going to, again, it's all about what you focus on. And if you focus on failing, what do you think is going to happen? Yeah, more than likely you're going to fail.
Yeah. I choose to focus on consistent improvements, like incremental progress, not failure, because exactly what you focus on is exactly what's going to happen.
And, we talk about keeping it simple. There's so many different ways you could, take that, keep it simple. I've always been about simplicity, focusing on, 1 or 2 carriers. I mean, this year, I bet I've probably maybe written business with a total of maybe 5 carriers. But majority of the time it's like, Chris sees when I post, majority of the time it's the 1 carrier.
It's probably 3. Like, I think you probably wrote maybe 3. Amman, Baltimore Life, and you throw an Aetna out there just because you like the color purple, I think.
That's every once in a while. That's it. Transamerica a little bit.
Yeah. Okay. There you go. There's the 4th.
Yeah. So, but not that many, keeping it simple. I just don't like to overcomplicate things. Work ethic, like you talked about earlier, Chris. And, I've said this many times on our trainings, like, you could be a professional student and you could sit on the trainings and you could feel like you're doing something and like you're real busy. And, I'm watching another training. How many trainings do you need to watch? Like, are you going to, after this training, are you going to watch somebody else's training and then another training today and then another training over the weekend and like next week? Like, you got to get out there and do it.
Do it.
If you can't get out of bed in the morning, like, why waste the time watching trainings? It's all about getting out there and working. And, I'm more than happy to help agents and teach them, and I enjoy it. But at the end of the day, you got to get up there and get out there and do it. I had an agent once, Chris, I probably said this before too, but he ordered 80 leads, 80 direct mail leads, and they all came in, and then I'm not seeing any production. And he's like, I'm just not ready to get out there yet. I'm still working on my presentation.
Oh my God.
And I'm thinking, boy, a great way to work on your presentation would maybe be to door knock some of those leads. You might actually be able to sit with people. Yeah.
There's no way he was sitting at home like he's preparing to do a script like an actor. Like, there was no way he's actually sitting there preparing to present. Let's practice again.
No, if anything, it was probably more like number 19 that we just talked about. Not fearing failure. Those leads came in and then he's freaking out. What if I fail? What if I go out there and the person tells me no? What am I going to do? Well, you got 79 more people to go see.
Keep going. Yeah.
So, but again, I've dealt with a lot of agents, Chris, that have been good at sales. That when they're out in the field working, they do really well. But the problem is they were just not out in the field enough. And, and you can't just go out there and make one sale and be like, all right, time to go home. Again, the good days are going to make up for the bad. Not every day is going to be a great day. And you just got to keep going with this. But that's the one thing. I mean, I think that's probably the biggest thing in this business is work ethic.
Mm-hmm.
And, I've seen it. I mean, even a tip I'd say for different managers out there, especially those that are in field sales. It's not, you could door knock an agent. I've done it before. You could door knock an agent, and say, hey, I was just in the area. I was going to go out and work some leads today. You want to come with? And like, if it's like 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock and they're home, well, that's issue number one. They're actually home when you drove. They're actually home when you drove by.
Yeah.
And, the other issue is, are they dressed? Are they like ready to head out? Like that, again, you can pick up a lot of stuff right there. Like, that's why you're failing. You're not out working. You don't have that structure like we talked about. You don't know what your day or week's going to look like. And so, I've done that before. Drop by on an agent. You could even call them. And, if an agent is giving you excuses why they can't go out and work with you today, well, that's why they're failing.
There you go.
Setting goals, annual, monthly, weekly, daily. You always got to have something to work towards, whether that's a financial goal, whether that's a production goal. You can break it down so many different ways. You can simplify it. I mean, I break it down into like a daily goal of how much business I want to write. I'll talk about, I want to write 5,000 in premium this week. Well, now 5,000 in premium sounds like a lot. 600 in monthly premium to me doesn't sound like it's as much. So, 600 in monthly premium, that's $100 a day. No, actually 500. That's it. 500. That's what I used to always do. Yeah. 500 for 6,000 in premium. So if you set a goal of 100 a day, Monday through Friday, well, then you hit that goal by Friday, take off on Saturday. If you don't, go out there on Saturday and do what you can. But break it down into smaller numbers. 6,000 in premium might sound like a lot. To me, $100 a day, Monday through Friday, doesn't sound as hard as long as you're willing to put in the time. And again, you can focus on premium. You can focus on income. For me, I could say, I know I need to make this much money. Well, then I can break it down into premium to figure out how much I need to do. So, but you got to have something to be working towards. And I think that definitely helps. When I was building my house, I mean, that was something I had to work towards. I knew how much money I needed to make. I knew how much money I needed to pay my builder by a certain date, over and above what I was usually doing. So just different goals and figuring out ways to hit those goals to do what you need to do to be successful and to make the money that you need to earn or make. Do that little extra. Like I said, don't just focus on the leads, focus on doing other stuff, figuring out ways to make those sales. Like I did the other day, figuring out ways to make sales when I needed to. Brainstorming a little bit, whether that's referrals, whether that's dropping in on a client, policy reviews. I mean, the little extra, one extra sale a week from doing things outside of just working leads, Chris. I mean, heck, $800 in premium over 52 weeks. I mean, what's that? Another $48,000 to $50,000 a year in income just by doing that little extra.
Yep.
Don't miss out on the growth potential in the business. Some people, maybe it's not for them. Maybe they just want to focus on doing their own thing. I think that if you're good at what you do, why not teach others and help others to be successful as well? And that's when your income is going to multiply. Keep up with technology. Not many carriers out there anymore allow you to fax applications in. So you need to keep up with technology.
I had a guy say, well, where can I download the paper application? And that was the moment I should have said, this isn't a good fit for you.
Yeah.
That was the moment I should have said, yeah, no, what? Never mind. No big deal. Find somewhere else that you can do business, but it isn't going to make sense to do it with us. That was the freaking moment. Right
there. I can't remember the last time I needed to do a paper app.
You can't. Don't.
No. And you got to keep up with technology. Like if you're not willing to figure out how to get on an iPad and like go to a website and log in and click a few buttons to get to an e-app, this isn't for you.
No.
I mean, it's really not that hard. I mean, some of these e-apps, I bet my 5-year-old could probably figure out.
Yeah. A 5-year-old
Honestly,
could write an iCover application.
Yeah, he probably could. You know, he might need help, you know, spelling their names, but he knows how to click the buttons and work his way through the app. I'm
He'll
sure
go
he
right
could.
to 50,000 every time. That's good. That's a good one.
I like the number 5.
Yeah, purchase coverage. Boom.
There you go. But you just, you know, I think that's another thing, you know, people that aren't willing to just do these little simple things like keeping up with technology. I mean, we're in the year 2025. I mean, the convenience of the e-app, the convenience of getting that decision on the spot and not having to wait for a decision or go back and have to resell a client because it went from a preferred to a modified.
Yeah.
You know, why submit a paper app and then have to deal with that headache? So keeping up with technology is very important.
I am
just about done here.
Yeah, I got one thought to close with when you're ready to close. I think it's a number that people are going to be blown away with what you've done, but I'll let you bring us to that moment before I let people know.
Yeah, you know, good or bad, always hold yourself accountable. You know, wherever we're at with whatever we're doing, you know, we can't blame others. I don't feel like there's people in the industry that are out there that are really like, man, I hope that guy fails. I mean, that's just at the end of the day, you got to hold yourself accountable for the decisions that we make. Yeah, you know what? Like I said, you know, I got hit with some roll up debts that all sucks, but you know what? I knew going in the risk that was involved with that side of the business, and I was willing to take on that risk. And so, you know, you win some, you lose some. At the end of the day, I'm not willing to say, yeah, you know, that was, you know, I lost on that guy. You know, I lost on that one agent that hit me with some debt. But you know what? All it takes is finding a few more to kind of get you back on track the right way. So,
yeah.
But yeah, you know, I could sit around and say, you know what? I can't believe that carriers do that. Like that, I can't believe that right away they're just going to throw that debt at me. Well, you know what? I knew going in that that's how it worked. So, you know, and I think most people do. Most people know how it works going into it. But then when it finally happens, they'd rather just play that blame game. And, but that's how you're going to be in and out of the business real quick. Not being able to hold yourself accountable for anything and, you know, always playing victim. Love what you do. I mean, if you don't love what you, and that's the final point for me today, you know, love what you do. If you don't love what you do, you know, maybe seek other opportunities in the industry.
It's okay too.
Yeah. You know, there's several different opportunities out there. And sometimes it takes failing to realize what we really want to be doing and where we feel like we'll be successful. So, you know, you got to love what you do. And if you don't love what you do, you know, see if there's other opportunities out there. And if there isn't, well, then this just might not be the business for you. And that's fine too. It's not for everybody. You know, not everybody's built different for final expense.
Built different. Built to last. You ready for the number?
Sure.
You have crossed the $30,000 mark in investments in your business since we've begun tracking it in Stripe, which is under 12 months for those of you watching. Over $30,000 invested in your marketing, in your appointments, in your stuff that makes that production happen. So congratulations on that today.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I'm surprised that that's it. You know, I'm surprised that that's to me that almost sounds low. You know, I would think that it would be higher than that, but then again, last year, I mean, we were doing other stuff with leads, probably like the first half of the year.
Yeah.
So
this is like maybe 9 months, maybe 8 months.
Yeah. I'm thinking maybe
7
May,
and 3/4.
Yeah. Maybe May or June last year, we started doing that with the Stripe.
Yep.
So before then, I was doing some stuff a little bit differently with the leads. So I guess that, I guess that number makes sense then. I got to go through that anyways. I got to finish my business taxes today or I'm going to get yelled at. I've already gotten yelled at. So I know I'll get yelled at even more if I don't get on that. So, but yeah, that's about all I had for today, Chris. If you remember, this was the presentation that I kind of went through when we got together in Tennessee about maybe 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah.
Changed things up maybe a little bit with it since then. And again, it always changes a little bit. I think a lot of the things that we talk about, well, are based on our current situations, and what's really on our minds and what's going on. So the presentation today could be a lot different than it was 6 months ago or a year ago or 5 years ago. So that's where, but in the end, nothing, these points really don't change. This is all the same. And again, that's what it's going to take it to make it long-term in the business. So
well said.
But thanks again. I knew we went a little bit over, but that's okay. I hope y'all have a great weekend and a great upcoming week. And if you need anything, feel free to reach out.
Take care.
Let's see here.